Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and thank you for joining me on another episode. Here we talk about all things healing, embracing our story, and cultivating community. And I'm so glad that you're here. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. That would mean so much because this week we are hitting our 200th episode, and I cannot believe it. Literally, we've been doing this for 4 years and have been posting weekly, have taken maybe like 2 months off within the time. But I am just so grateful for you being here. And I'm just so excited for today's episode. I know that a huge part of this message that we share on this podcast is about embracing your story and just seeing that your story is still being written in the big picture of what God has created for you. And no matter what you have been through, you can still overcome. You can still make a beautiful life out of the things that you have walked through. And so we have had amazing people on here, from advocates, therapists, we've had family, my friends, we've had amazing women share their story of just overcoming, of things that we can all relate to. And I'm just so grateful. Today's episode, we're actually doing kind of like an overview of snippets of different episodes that we have done over the years, and I'll be sharing that with you guys. But before that, I wanted to share a little feedback from our past content and episodes that I feel like is usually stuff that people write me personally, and that's what means so much to me because I feel like I'm able to like engage and just, give advice or encourage someone through this. But I know that there has been so many of you guys that, especially with our series earlier this year about toxic relationships and about overcoming trauma bonds and things like that, like you were able to, just feel you weren't alone, and I think that that was a huge part of when we shared that, was seeing how many women resonate, which was really heartbreaking, but also to see that there was a space of women that can see that they can get out of those situations. And so I wanted to share a few things that people have said on social media. So someone said, I stumbled across this content and it's crazy how I experienced the same thing. I left my house crying and praying to God that I didn't want to feel like that again, but I continued to be on and off for 2 years, and I'm still not completely over, but we aren't currently talking, and I still have a love for someone that has hurt me so much, but it is inspiring to see that it's possible to feel healed. Someone else said, I came across your page and podcast. I've been healing for a year and a few months now, and from my 7-year toxic relationship. It was so bad in all forms of abuse. I kept quiet for so long, and the type your voice is so crushed and everyone turns against you. The type where he hurts you so bad. But your page has been something that I've been listening to, and I cried to finally see that someone understands. Thank you so much. Someone also said, I can't express enough how much I needed to hear these episodes and talking about how to overcome a trauma bond. I'm currently in a 13-year relationship, and the relationship is so toxic, but I feel paralyzed that I can't leave. I'm going to continue listening to your podcast and hoping it gives me more motivation to do what I need to do. Thank you for sharing your advice and experiences. And someone else had said, as a woman of faith, employed in the first responder field, healing from trauma from my personal life and in my professional life, being in my late 20s as a divorced woman who isn't dating, who is doing life alone without much friends or family, your movement helps. Thank you for posting things that make others feel included, seen, and comforted by knowing I'm not the only one. So thank you, ladies, for that feedback. And I have so many messages like that I know that the main theme of it is just knowing that when we bring things to light and when we talk about things that maybe are shameful or hard to talk about or things that have been difficult to walk through, we bring them to light and allow others the space to feel transparent and vulnerable. And so thank you guys, because honestly, this podcast has been such a beautiful journey. It has been so amazing to see how God has used the broken pieces of my life and the areas that I thought were so far gone and that I didn't think that God was going to be able to use it, because I'm like, Lord, like this is not how I anticipated my life to go. But I've just seen how God has been able to use all of that and be able to impact my life, change my heart, heal my heart, and also do it for others. So I am cheering you on. And so let's just get right into the episodes that have impacted us in the past few years.
So it also has, you have to decide on what you specifically want. What is your moral, even
your values,
your what is it that you want? What character traits do you want in an individual? And if one of them is, I want them to be completely sure as to what they want, then you don't entertain someone that says you're amazing, but there's no but, my friend. You're going to lose me to someone else that's actually better.
And that knows what they want.
Because
that's clear.
That's another trait too. It's like you want humility in an individual. If they think that, you know what, that they're willing, you should wait a year for me. It's like, I don't know if I want that level of ego. Because you know what? I don't want to lose you. Can we go through this process together? I'm not going to commit to anybody else. How about that?
Yeah.
This could be, let's talk about what we are and how we're not going to date other people. And let's revisit this in 3 months.
But it's like them actually working on the things that they said that they were working on to get ready.
Let me tell you something. If you're leading the relationship now, you will always lead the relationship. 6 months down the line, you're going to still be like, so what are we? A year down the line, 2 years down the line. Pay attention to character traits. You can be going through stuff and still be a good friend. You can be going through stuff and still show up for individuals. I think they're saying way more.
Yeah. But when you stay, I feel like then that just shows them that they're like, oh, she's willing, like she's able. And then what's sad is that's when girls say like, well, but then we ended things and then he got in another relationship. So what does that mean?
That means he was wasting your time. That means he was wasting your time. So, and here's the thing. We have to get to know people to see if we can connect with them. Not everybody is just a space filler.
Yeah.
But for some people, you are a space filler.
Ouch.
Yeah. And it's better than being alone at times. So that's why I say people benefit from your uncertainty. If you're genuinely getting to know people, so you don't have to be so intense. This isn't about, because that's intense, that's intimidating. I have talked to people that are dating, because I do couples work, but I prefer the individual work in the dating realm. So it's like, if you go in intense, you're gonna scare some people away, But if you have an idea as to what you want and you lead with that, you're not necessarily drawing a map. Again, you don't want to give them the full recipe.
Yeah,
let them show up. Let them be who they are. But keep it inside and go, okay, you know what? It's been a month. I'm gonna just kind of put in this question. All right, so now we're entering 2 or 3 months. We've hung out like 10 times. You kind of have an idea if you want to continue hanging out with this person,
But then I feel like when it gets hard is when you as a friend, then you notice, okay, this is a very bad relationship for you. And I know that you shouldn't be there. And I think that is the deciding point, because that's something to your heart. When like you acknowledge and you're like, oh no, like I know 100% that you shouldn't be in that relationship. And when you see your friend not wanting to get out, it's really hard, because you want to be there for them and you want to like get them out, but they need to want to get out first. So I would say that what worked for us was I just was there listening until I couldn't listen anymore. And I remember having to set those boundaries with you, where I'm here to support you and I'm here to listen about it. But it got to the point where it was so unhealthy that I felt that I was more upset about it than you. And I was like, but I'm literally fighting out more than you are for yourself. And I found myself very invested and so done more than you. So I remember having the conversation where I was like, okay, like Liz, as much as I love you, this is really like unhealthy for me, because yet again, we are here again and you are not out. And it is really unhealthy. You had physical signs. You had like headaches. You had so many signs that this was so unhealthy for you. And as a friend, it's really hurtful. It hurts to see you in so much pain. Where I'm like, whenever you're ready to make the jump, call me, because I'll hold your hand. I'll be there. But in this transition, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, because you're literally hitting the same wall over and over, and I'm hitting it with you, because that's what friends do, right? Like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. We're going. Okay.
Because we could have like hours conversations.
Yes.
And I was like in a trauma bond. I was like in an addiction, and I would tell you like, it's just like, it's like you're torn, and someone that has been in a toxic relationship, you know how hard it is because it's like you're not like you don't know how life is going to be after. So it's so scary, and you've been in this dysfunctional on and off for so long that it's like you hear all this stuff but you don't even believe it because your self-esteem is low, your confidence is low. So you, like, people telling you all these affirmations and everything, it just like I don't see myself that way, and like I don't know if I can survive like without it, you know. So I feel like that was hard because I needed you, and I needed like my close people, and there was multiple people that told me like I just can't anymore. And that was so hard because like right from the outside it's like, wow, like that's so mean. But it's like, no, I saw how much they were there for me, and it was to the point that it was so many times that I had to continue to finally get to the place where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Versus them, because even my parents went out to try to say things, like people would like vouch for me in certain things, and then I would go back. And so I think those are very difficult, and I know that if you've ever been in unhealthy dynamics or even unsafe dynamics, it takes like 7+ times for you to finally get out. So those situations, I'm still glad that even though you did set those boundaries with me, you were still there for me, and you would still check in, and there were still people that checked in. But it wasn't until I started, I feel like my therapy, I think that was maybe for you when I started telling you things that you would tell me, but I heard it from my therapist, and it was like, oh my God, I think
I'm like, I literally told you that last year.
And you're like, okay. So what gave you hope, like as a friend, to kind of be like, stick it out with me? I mean, because I know you care about me, but like, what also made you feel like, I believe that
that's not the thing, because I would have been with you regardless. You know, you would have stayed or not, because that's the thing too. We need to, and I just want to make this point very quick. When you have friendships like this, it's an unconditional love, right? So unless you have to do something really, really, really bad for me to be like, oh, I'm out, you know? But it's an unconditional love. That means that regardless you stayed in that relationship, I was still gonna be there no matter what. It was my level of commitment in the subject, you know? But I was
more towards that.
Towards that subject, but not you, because we would still hang out and we would still do things together, and we would talk about other areas of your life that were also important. Just that subject, I was like, I'm kind of like, let's pause that subject for a little while. So regardless you were in and out, I was still gonna be there for you, and the love is unconditional. However, when I saw that you woke up a little bit and you started getting the help that you needed, and you didn't give up, you were like, okay, like I know I'm not healthy, and you started working on yourself, I'm like, okay, here we go again. Like, okay, let's go. Let's go. I think that really helped to see you getting the help for yourself and wanting better for you. Because I think it got to the point like, no, like I know this is not good. Like I know I deserve more, so I'm gonna go and find better.
And then it started going like less. It would be like longer time. It's like a relapse. Like it's kind of like I haven't like gone back, or I haven't, you know, because it was like I was good for some time.
And then she wouldn't tell me. I'll be like, I know, I can just tell.
She's like, you talk to him. I was like, it's like, it's crazy when you have a friend that not only sees you in that way, but also like in, at least with the toxic relationships, it's like it does so much to you that it's like it's so obvious. And so now, right, like because I've worked through a lot of that stuff, now when I've walked friends through that, it's like my karma.
It's frustrating, huh?
You're like, how does it feel?
I know.
Because I'm like,
so what do you tell her? Did she listen?
Thing is, to your point about losing trust, that's what therapists also often refer to as corrective experiences. So sometimes we get hurt and we're like, you know what? I'm not doing that again. That was painful. But we have to be open to corrective experiences, meaning I find myself in the same circumstances again a few months later, but things go differently this time. This woman's different. She accepted me when I said that vulnerable thing. And it gives you a chance to update the stories you've been telling yourself. But if you say, I'm not dealing with people no more, I'm not doing female friends anymore, you don't have an opportunity for corrective experiences. So those are two things to keep in mind that I think can help propel women forward after, that loss.
Yeah, so good. Thank you so much for all your insights, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, for your advice from today's episode. What last encouragement do you have talking about friendship, talking about connectedness, and what people need today? Like, what are some last encouragements for someone listening?
Just generally, I would say to be a connector, And by that, I mean, be a woman who leans into loving on other people, showing up for other people. It's very easy to get caught up in, well, who's giving it back? And okay, well, she's giving back a little bit, so then I'll give her a little bit. And am I going to rank her as a number one friend or a number three? I get it. I see those stories and those posts and stuff all the time. Can you just live life like a generous connector? You see somebody in need, you help them out. You see a friend who's hurting, you help her out. You see a friend whose birthday it is, but she didn't say happy birthday to you, but you know it's her birthday, you text her happy birthday. And I know that's not popular, but I personally believe that God honors that. And if I'm measuring every little tit for tat and I believe at some point you be a connector. Don't be foolish now, but be a connector, be generous, be kind to other people, and be careful with how you care for the hearts of women who are in your circle. I think if you hold that as a life mantra, you'll be okay.
Even if at the time that breakup broke your heart, it actually saved your life. You'd be so proud of who you have become. You are not who you used to be, and that's a beautiful thing. You made the right decision of letting go and moving forward. Every mark has brought you here. So that was my letter to myself of like my 2019, 2020 version needed to hear. And she would be so proud of who I am today. And this is not to boast about where I'm at, but I am not where I was. And I want to give you hope that if you are just starting in your healing journey and you feel so hopeless, I hope that this encourages you to know that there's so much beautiful things that are still yet to happen. So many people you haven't met, so many opportunities you haven't gotten yet, so many places you haven't seen, so many new things that can come, even out of the hardest things of making the decision to move forward and not go back. The first year after I left the relationship, people would doubt and be like, you're going to go back. You're going to go back. You're not going to make it. Like, we'll see in 2 years. We'll see in 2 years and a half. And I proved everybody that I was capable and I was strong and I meant what I said, that I was not going to go back. And that was the best decision that I could have ever done for myself. And it's not going to be an easy journey because I'm not ever going to tell someone that that was the easiest thing. No, the healing was the hardest thing. But I would still be in the same situation if I wouldn't have done the healing and I wouldn't have gone through the journey of the pain and letting go and putting boundaries and all the things. So I am grateful for the process and the journey. And I know that that's possible for you too. All the things that you heard today that are like, oh my God, I can't imagine myself doing that. Take it one thing at a time. Take it one step at a time and put little hopes for yourself. Like, okay, this month, what am I going to do that's a little differently? Maybe it's ending contact. Maybe it's getting in therapy. Maybe it's finding your friends or a support system. Maybe it's finding what you enjoy for yourself. Like making those little things that are going to make a huge impact to you a year from now.
When I started dating Raul, I brought my friends into it. Hey, listen, I don't have the best track record. I've worked on myself. Like I know what I like and what I don't like, but I need you guys to kind of be on my team. And if maybe you see something and I don't see, I was very open to the red flags.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, okay, let's look at that, or let me pay attention to that. Because, we don't see our stuff. What was interesting was that Raul he's not a love bombing kind of guy. He's very calm, very easygoing. So, a lot of the time I always say these poor guys that are just like regular nice guys and hey, let's go have some coffee. Let's, they are the real winners, not the one that's gonna, take you to a $300, meal and just try to impress you to no end. And it's like, there's a time for that, but not No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and you've taught me that.
Yes.
Because I feel like I was used to that. I'm like, oh, like even the love bombing would always be like big, or like, let's go on a trip together. Like,
Yes.
let's go do these things. And it was like, oh, like that's so exciting. But at the same time, like, oh no, it has to be calm. And like, you know, and I've shared that before of like the difference of like the fears, but I also feel like I know that there's actually good guys out there and genuine guys now.
Mhm.
I feel like I was very guarded in the beginning. And I've shared this, I don't think I've shared this on my podcast, but like after a part of healing after my healing was feeling safe around men, I actually got a guy personal trainer for that because I wanted to start feeling comfortable about like safe, that I'm like, nothing's gonna happen to me.
That's a good idea.
And then I joined salsa, remember,
Yes,
during that time. And I'm
yes.
like, okay, I'm interacting with different men and like kind of just casually like meeting people. And all these things that I was doing to start kind of having a different narrative of men
Mhm.
because I felt like I didn't understand, because like this person was so good at portraying something, but that he wasn't. And so I'm like, do I trust myself? Can I meet, you know, genuine people, you know?
Yes.
And that was part of my healing too,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So I feel like that, and then feeling safe with myself, that was a huge part. But I did want to talk with you about what is the post-healing kind of like journey, because you've seen me with like after leaving the relationship, you know,
Mhm.
all that has happened that you know. And how do you kind of like detach yourself from the trauma bond fully? And do you ever like fully like detach yourself? Like how does that start?
You know, all of these steps that I was talking about, like the love bombing, trust and dependency, the gaslighting, all of that stuff. Probably the biggest one is now you have such an awareness of what all
Mm-hmm.
that is, that it no longer feels comfortable and safe like it used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, I was surprised when I started dating.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up on all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Is awareness is such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, look, I'm in my 60s. I'm still working on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing that it's there,
Mm-hmm.
being able to identify it.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. I was watching a therapist. She was doing this little snippet, and she had these balls of yarns,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, you know, trauma, it starts to wrap itself around all the areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But as you start to sort it out,
Mm-hmm.
and your gut starts to tell you, well, that doesn't feel right, and you step
Mm-hmm.
back, it starts to unravel itself, and you can begin to pull it out.
Yeah.
And I think you've been doing a lot of that, a lot of pulling it out.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, so for example, sometimes things will come after the fact that you never know about. And I'll give you a great example. And I think I had talked about this before, but I'm not sure. My dad came to live with me after my mother died.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of a parent that you haven't lived with for 40 years is very
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, this totally happened. I felt I was back in my childhood trauma with some issues with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew my moods were changing. I was getting angry and I felt really off. And I remember telling my husband, what is going on? Why am I feeling all of this? That I've been to therapy. I'm a therapist. And by the way, therapists need therapy.
You still struggle with stuff.
I would caution you to go to a therapist who's never been through therapy.
Yeah.
But it was that. It was, I started to see that my father was recreating, because it's all he knew, the same behavior that he used to do with my mom, he transferred it to me, which is what happened in my childhood. And I was like, oh no, this is going to stop. And what helped me was boundaries. I started to set boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, Carlos and I talk about this all the time. If we would have been put in this position 10 years ago, I don't know that we would have had the character to sustain it. 10 years ago. I don't know that we would have had the integrity to say no to clients that even though are offering a lot of money, but are not value aligned. If we would have had the integrity to say no to something like that. Now that we're older, that we're more mature in our faith, that we're more mature in life, experienced,
yes.
Now we can say no. And so we can sustain what God has called us to do. And so there's so much of like trusting that has to happen. And I know that people are probably listening going, that's easy for you to say, you're living your dream right now. But I wasn't always living my dream. 8 years ago, I was not living my dream. 6 years ago, I was not living my dream. 3 years ago, when I found out I was pregnant, or when I was having my third child and I had a newborn in the middle of COVID and homeschooling my special needs son with another 4-year-old, like I can't say I was living my dream. I can't say that. But I am living the prayers of those seasons. I am living the seeds of those seasons.
So good. Like, I'm like, whew. I'm taking it for myself because I feel like I have felt like that, where I feel like I'm like, it's like in the waiting, and then you're just like, Lord, but like you put this in my heart, you know, and like when, and like when are things gonna align, and like
it's like the hurry up and wait. Yes,
it's like, and then I think, and I've shared this with you, that I sometimes have felt like through like social media or like other people that are around your age, or like even the vision that you had for yourself, that can sometimes stop you, like, because you're like, does it even matter? Like, you know, I'm not doing enough, or I need to do more. And it's like that like tug of like, I feel like these are the dreams that I want, and I know that I'm like going for it, but also like it's waiting of the timing, like, you know, like, Lord, I'm pressing in. And when we look back in our life, like even when you were saying in the beginning, like I can see that like it is through the work and the process, and it's his perfect timing. Because when I look back, I'm like, I wasn't ready the first year. I wasn't ready the second year. Like, that's the hard part that we want to not admit. You know, like God was like working in those areas. And he's like, we gotta, you know, this is behind the scenes, you know? But there's still some dreams in my heart still that still feel that way sometimes, where it's like, Lord, I'm like pressing in and I'm doing, you know? So how do you balance with yourself now, as like with the goals that you still have for High Hello Labs in your business, and the waiting of like knowing your season, and that balance?
I think one, remembering how far I've come, and this exact conversation, even having these conversations, I'm preaching to the choir, like I'm preaching to myself of like, that we always move the mark, right? Like we reach a goal, and then I think Jenna Kutcher said this, but like you reach the bar, you set the bar, and you work so hard and you reach it, and no sooner you get there, you're already moving it, right? Instead of like sitting on that bar and going, okay, let me take in this season, let me enjoy this season, let me learn from this season, let me look back and reflect and learn and do all that, and then we can move the bar up again and go into that mode.
Thank you for tuning into this week's podcast episode. I hope you were inspired and encouraged by the episodes that we shared, and just how amazing and encouraging it feels, and to know that you can overcome things and challenges that you've walked through, and your life can still be beautiful despite what you have walked through. And so make sure to share this with a friend. Let us know what you're loving. Leave us a review and share this on social media. Tag us at Elizabeth Sabi, and I'll see you guys next week.